Hello and welcome to the series that takes one of the best games made for the Game Boy Advance and breaks it down to only its most important parts. It's the Minish Cap Abridged. Well, the game starts off as any good dating sim starts. You're trying to get some sleep after a hard day's work, and your girlfriend wakes you up because she wants to go to the farmer's market. So your grandpappy tells you to take care of her because she happens to be the freaking princess of the realm. Your grandfather, by the way, is a blacksmith named Smith, so that's really literal. It would be like if your name was Link because there's a link between reincarnated heroes of different eras or something like that. Anyway, you get her to the festival or whatnot, and she can't sit still for 1 second. She doesn't enjoy any of the booths. She's got the attention span of a bandit in Skyrim. She gets you a shield at a not at all rig because you're the princess kind of game, and you finally make your way to the castle to see the award ceremony. Did no one see this coming? He's wearing all black, he's got red eyes, and his hair covering half his face. He screams villain with a troubled past. His name is Vati, and he turns the princess into stone because the Secret Service here is incompetent. I mean, look at this guard force. You can tell none of them have ever skinned their knee before, much less been in real combat. I guess this is what happens when your entire country has like 30 people in it, and half of them are guards. When you wake up, you get told that you, a child, must save the entire country because only children can see the pickery. Reforge a sword and use it to seal the monsters back in their box. Well, you make your way to the woods, and you meet a duck with no legs that happens to talk a lot, and since he doesn't have legs, he decides to jump on your head. The origins of Link's green hat, ladies and gentlemen. The canon origins of Link's hat. The Forest Minish have an adorable little home in the middle of the woods, but you can't get to it unless you become a mini yourself. So you shrink yourself down in the stump, one of the many size-changing objects in the game, and make your way to the village itself, where you discover no one speaks English. Instead, everyone is pretending to be a Pokemon. You finally meet one nerd who can speak English, and he tells you that you need to eat a nut that will allow you to speak the Minish language. It's the Jabber Nut, you see, and it has lips. Well, eating the nut lets you speak to the Minish Elder, who allows you to enter the first dungeon in the game, Deepwood Shrine. This is where we find that Ezlo likes to talk, a lot, all the time, and he interrupts you, a lot, all the time. You can do something, and then he'll suggest you do the exact same thing that you just did. This becomes more apparent later, but for now we'll delve deeper into the shrine and discover the first dungeon item in the game, the Gust Jar. It's one of the coolest items in Zelda history in my opinion. It's like your very own vacuum/leaf blower all in one. We do a lot of sucking and a lot of blowing with this thing. What I meant to say is this item comes in very handy in this dungeon. After using the Gust Jar to tidy up the dungeon a bit, and then using it as a method of propulsion for a leaf boat, we finally make it to the boss and get to fight a really tired looking green Choo-Choo. Seriously, this guy looks like he hasn't slept in weeks. We put the Choo-Choo to bed once and for all, and we can collect the first element. Once we're back in town, oh goodness, look at this creepy old guy with children in tow. Hurdy-Gurdy Man gives us a bag to put these Kinstone Cruds in, which will soon become our biggest nightmare. Until we discover the horror that is mysterious shells. Alrighty, well, in order to progress with the story, we need to climb Mount Crenel. And in order to climb Mount Crenel, we need an empty bottle. So we assault a nut-spitting Deku Scrub and buy a bottle from him. Then we can pour water on the seed and create a vine to climb. After getting the grip ring, we can finally actually climb up the walls. Ah yes, Malari's Mines. Here we meet Malari and his jovial crew, just tagging along in for iron or whatever. Malari tells you that it is not a problem for him to reforge the blade that was broken. Oh, I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay. My agent says I can't call it that because it's been used by another sword from a book that someone wrote like 100 years ago. So he'll repair the Pickery blade. But in the meantime, we have to go on and get the second element from the Mines of Moria. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Same book? Gotcha. Okay, won't happen again. Okay, so we go into the Cave of Flames. It's not even called the mine. And we do some Minecart Carnage. You know what? Forget it. The Cane of Pocky is really one of the coolest items in the game. It has two purposes. It can flip things over, and it can create energy in holes that once activated will shoot Link out, allowing us to reach higher areas. This thing can flip anything. Enemies, pots, platforms, as well as we'll see later, even bigger pots that can serve as Minish portals. For now, we use the cane to get deeper into the caves until we reach the boss of the level, Gleerock, who is similar, but not to be confused with, Gleeok of the original Legend of Zelda. However, like his NES brethren, he has a long neck and is generally a pain in the tuchus. In any event, we get the second element and return to Malari, who coincidentally just finished reforging the sword right when we got back. Now it's time to infuse the sword with some elemental power. Doing so gives us the new white sword, which is much stronger than the regular reforged Pickery blade. Plus, it gives us the added power of being able to duplicate ourselves with the glowing tiles we've seen around. It's pretty neat. And now for some plot exposition. Yes, it turns out the villain of the story is just your typical nerd who suddenly gets hold of some power, and then he wants to take over the world for reasons. Whatever. Once a nerd, always a nerd. I should know. After revealing himself to us, Avati possesses the king, who is, by the way, unattended. Completely. Seriously, what king ever has been left absolutely unguarded? I tell you what, this amateurish security force is getting fired after all of this. He gives the order for everyone to look for the power hidden somewhere in Hyrule, and despite being completely contrary to anything he would ever actually say or do, everyone just goes with it. As for us though, our next destination is the Castor Wilds. Well, we can't actually reach the Castor Wilds because of the goop, so instead we have to help some guy with narcolepsy wake up by making him smell a terrible smell from a mushroom. When he wakes up, as a thank you, he for some reason gives us the best shoes he's ever made, the Pegasus boots. We can now go into the Castor Wilds, and we collect some special kinstone pieces and fuse with these stone statues. It makes him happy. Alright, the Fortress of Winds, really cool level, kinda puzzly, and one of my favorite Zelda items to boot, the Mulmids. These little cruds let you dig through the dirt and whatnot, and you can uncover all kinds of neat things, but also ruby likes, which aren't so neat. The boss in this level is Mazal. He's a guardian who tests adventurers and see who is and isn't worthy. Well, let's go ahead and prove ourselves worthy. Doing so gets us the ocarina. Oh, well, no. We're supposed to get the third element. What a ripoff. Okay, it's time to do some chores for some NPCs. By far my favorite part of any video game. So these librarians, they're too lazy to do their job. This girl right here, she's in charge of getting the books back, and she actually wants us to go and get the books back from the people who have them. I mean, I'm only trying to save the world from inevitable destruction and annihilation. But sure, I'll go around town and ask these nerds where they left their books. And naturally, we have to retrieve the books from the delinquents.
I'm sorry, if you want the book back, you'll have to get it yourself.
How about I kick you in the nards? Will you get the book back then? No, I'm too busy being stuck in perpetual first base with this chicklet. I hope you die alone. After getting the books back to the library, we can meet Library, the wisest of the wise of the Minish, and apparently a prankster of some renown. That's okay, because this way we get the mighty flippers. With these we can do some ice cave diving, and we enter the obligatory water dungeon, which is actually more ice than water. Upon entering, we see the element. Nice and easy. I like this dungeon. But wait a second, it's encased in ice. Well, if only we had some way to chip away at the ice, like with a sword or something. Or bombs to blow it apart. No? Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and try to melt it somehow. Something here is obviously going to cause us trouble later. No other enemy in the game lives up to its name like pestos. And I don't mean because they make a delicious sauce consisting of garlic, pine nuts, basil, Italian cheese, and olive oil. I mean because they're pests. But seriously, pesto is delicious. The pesto with poop, as I like to call them, are the worst. They drop rolled up little balls of compact dung on your head. It's incredibly rude and uncalled for. Defeating Big Blue here is as easy as defeating his greener yet equally a sleep-deprived comrade. And we get the lantern. The lantern's pretty cool. Lights up dark rooms, melts ice. See, this dungeon is interesting though, because it utilizes the lantern's dual utility. So we have some dark rooms now, and we also have stuff encased in ice. I think it's a pretty neat way of turning one item and getting two types of game mechanic out of it. Shining sunlight onto the giant ice block lets us take the element, but it also unfreezes the Octorok. He's a cute little tyke, but we have to give him a good murder nonetheless. After defeating the Octo and rummaging through his innards, we get the element that he ate. Great, let's get out of this frozen hellhole. What's this? We exit the cave and get greeted by a ghost. And he wants us to visit him in his graveyard. Just a little weird, but we're used to weird things at this point. So let's go ahead and do what he asks. Before we do though, we really need to get into the castle and infuse our sword with more power. But it looks like we're in some state of martial law. These guys are really putting the garden on lockdown. Ain't nobody getting through these hedges. It's gonna take our most sneaky sneak abilities to get through this super secure... Oh, we're through already? Oh, okay. Well that was easy. Alright, well, let's go on and get out of here. Now that we can become 3 links, we can head to the Royal Valley. Along the way, we're going to take a quiz about the things we've done so far on this journey. I hope you've been taking extensive notes. And get a reward of 99 arrows. That's an excessive amount of arrows. Well, it turns out this place is called the Royal Valley, but it's more of a haunted forest. Follow the clues on the signs to reach the other side, where you'll meet fan favorite Downpay. He gives us a key that gets stolen by a bird, and once we get it back, we can use it to get into the Royal Crypt, which is incredibly awkward. We battle our way through some mummies that just want to give us a hug, and also some traps and puzzles which are meant to be a foreshadowing of things to come. Alright guy, what was it that's so important that we had to come all the way here for? What? Seriously, bro? A kinstone piece? You're friggin' joking. You couldn't give this to me when we met? Whatever. So we have to fuse this kinstone piece with something called the source of the flow. And naturally that leads us to the Vale Falls, the source of the water flow in Hyrule. Fusing with this wall gives us access to the rest of the mountain, and once we get up there we can whoosh our way into the clouds. These are some dense clouds if we can stand on them. Oh great, it's these weirdos again. Never trust anyone that looks different than you and can walk on clouds. That's what I always say. Especially when they want you to fuse kinstones with clouds. Oh well. In order to progress, we have to make our way through this maze and dig through the clouds. This is getting trippy, man. Eventually, we create another vortex that takes us to the magical Palace of Winds, built by the Wind Tribe. So it turns out these are the ones that gave us the ocarina, so I guess they're not so bad after all. They also give us access to their dungeon, where we'll find the last element. This is the longest dungeon ever, but it's a pretty cool one because we get the Rock's Cape, a clear throwback to one of my favorite all-time Zelda items, the Rock's Feather. The cape lets us leap and soar for a short distance, and it is employed regularly in this dungeon. We also meet our first red Dark Nut, and oh man, these guys are a thorn in my side. Eventually we get to the boss of the dungeon, a giant flying manta ray named Red Yorg, and her gentleman friend, the smaller but infinitely more obnoxious Blue Yorg, and also Green Yorglets, which honestly are the most annoying of all. But eventually, once we pop all the little pimple-like eyes of the Red Yorg, we can be on our way. At this point in the game, I really hope you've collected enough mysterious shells, otherwise you're not collecting that last piece of heart. You see, collecting seashells isn't so bad. It's doing the figurines that's the worst part. It's the most tedious process you can think of, and honestly, I don't like that they lock a piece of heart behind this collectathon, but after hours of persistence, you'll get your just reward. At this point, we need to head back to the castle and infuse our sword one last time to create the fabled Pickery Blade, which is no longer called the Pickery Blade, by the way. We're now calling it the Four Sword for no apparent reason. Vati appears. He says some stupid bad guy cliches, and we're off to remove the curse from the denizens of the castle. We need to head to the dungeon first and rescue the king. Vati shows his lack of design sense by putting the switch that opens the cell gate inside the gate itself. Wow, what an oversight. Unfreezing the king nets us a key which we can use to explore Dark Hyrule Castle to our heart's content. This dungeon is definitely the most challenging, with brand new puzzles, tricks, and traps, many of which I wish they had done more of. But unfortunately, we have to pass the Gauntlet of Darkness instead, which is a huge pain. But eventually we'll get to the end. Now Vati has taken Zelda's statue and is going to suck the tasty magic power out of her. Fortunately, we're put on a timer, and we'll have until the clock chimes thrice, or else we lose. Game over. Also fortunately, he only puts 3 dark nuts in our way. 2 red and 1 black knight. Once you bash your face on this encounter enough times to get lucky and beat it in the time limit, you get to fight Vati himself. In typical Zelda fashion, Vati is a multi-stage fight. The first stage is pretty easy once you figure out his patterns. The second one is the most challenging in my opinion, as he keeps pooping out these little purple spiky thingamabobs. The final form is the easiest, without question. Or maybe I just got really favorable RNG, because it's just a matter of getting inside the claws and then killing the little Godsmack logo with the eye, and then you just do the old Aghanim bounce the balls back in his face trick. And believe me, no one likes balls to the face, not even Vati. After the battle, Vati will not believe he could lose. No bad guy ever does. And then he dies. Good riddance, man. What a turd. And that, boys and girls, is the Minish Cap Abridged. One of the best games on the Game Boy Advance, to be sure. And after replaying it, one of my favorite Zelda games. Now, if you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments. If this piqued your interest in the game, I encourage you to pick it up, either on the Virtual Console, or dust off your Game Boy Advance or DS or whatever you have. Get the card itself. It's really worth playing. And if you do get the game and you get stuck on or need some hints, check out the walkthrough. Until next time.